You know, when you think about the biggest, most mind-bogglingly complex projects in the world, a brand new skyscraper, a massive bridge, a sprawling power plant, what's the secret ingredient holding it all together? Well, it's not just concrete and steel. It's a very, very specific language. And today, we're going to learn how to speak it.
So let me ask you this. When you're dealing with a billion-dollar, multi-year construction project, what do you think is the single greatest threat? What's the one thing that's most likely to send the whole thing completely off the rails?
I bet your mind immediately goes to something really dramatic, right? A sudden market crash, a natural disaster, something you'd see in a movie. But the real culprits? They're usually hiding in plain sight.
Believe it or not, the real killer is miscommunication. It's what happens when an engineer, a finance manager, and a contractor all use the exact same word, but they mean three totally different things. That's not just a simple misunderstanding. That is a recipe for absolute disaster.
So, how in the world do you prevent that kind of chaos?
Well, there's actually a playbook for it. In this explainer, we're going to walk through the dictionary that gets everyone on the same page. We'll look at how projects define cost, how they plan for the unexpected, how they master time, and ultimately why this shared language is really the true foundation of any successful build.
Okay, so the solution comes from this incredible guide by an organization called AACE International. It's called Recommended Practice 10S-90. And honestly, you should think of it less like a dry dictionary and more like the essential operating system for anyone trying to manage a major project. The guide's whole purpose is simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Create a single source of truth for every single person involved. It's like a Rosetta Stone for construction. It makes sure that when an engineer in Houston talks about contingency, an investor in London knows exactly what they mean. No guesswork, no ambiguity, period.
Right, let's dive into the biggest question on any project. So, what's this actually going to cost? Now, you might think there's just one simple answer to that, but the fascinating thing is that answer is constantly evolving as the project starts to take shape. AACE brilliantly breaks this whole journey down into 5 classes of estimates. You start out at class 5, that's your classic back-of-the-napkin sketch, right? Just to see if the idea even has legs. Then, as you get more serious and define the project, you start moving up the ladder. By the time you hit a class 3, you're usually asking for real money, for budget authorization. And at class 1, you have a rock-solid, super detailed estimate to guide you all the way to the finish line. It's such a clear path from a fuzzy idea to a concrete number.
And this really gets to the heart of what cost estimating is all about. It's not about gazing into a crystal ball. As the AAC definition makes so clear, it's a predictive process. The better you define the scope, the more accurate your prediction becomes. You're basically systematically squeezing all of the uncertainty out of the equation.
Of course, we all know that no project plan ever survives first contact with reality. Things just go wrong. That's where risk comes in. And just like with cost, having a precise language to talk about all that uncertainty is absolutely critical.
Now, here's something that might actually surprise you. In the world of cost engineering, risk isn't always a bad thing. See, the terminology makes this really crucial distinction. A threat is what we normally think of as risk, something bad, a negative outcome. But an opportunity is also a form of risk. It's an unforeseen event that could actually make things better, like if the price of materials suddenly drops.
This slide right here highlights one of the most misunderstood but vital concepts in project management. Think of it like this. Contingency is your umbrella. You know it might rain, so you plan for it. It's for the known unknowns. Management reserve, on the other hand, is your emergency escape plan for a meteor shower. It's for the unknown unknowns, the completely wild, unforeseeable events that are way outside your project scope. And believe me, knowing the difference is crucial for financial survival.
Okay, so you've identified all these threats and opportunities. How do you decide what to focus on? Well, you use a simple but really powerful tool called a risk matrix. It's designed to help you see almost instantly which risks are screaming for your attention and which ones you can just kind of monitor.
And here's how it works. It's so simple. You just plot each risk based on how likely it is to happen and how big of an impact it would have if it did. Anything that lands in that top right corner, high probability, high impact, that's a massive red flag that you need to deal with right now. Something down in the bottom left, you can probably just keep an eye on it. It's just a brilliant way to focus your team's energy where it truly, truly matters.
All right, we've covered cost and we've covered risk. That brings us to the third critical element of any project, time. And you guessed it, mastering the schedule requires its own precise and essential vocabulary.
The absolute cornerstone,
the bedrock of modern project scheduling, is something called the critical path method, or CPM. At its core, it's a technique for finding the one specific sequence of tasks in your project that has absolutely zero wiggle room. The one chain of events that single-handedly determines how long the entire project is going to take.
And that specific sequence of tasks is known as the critical path. Now, the definition says it's the longest continuous chain of activities. And that might sound a little weird, right? Why would the longest path be the most critical? Well, let's take a look.
This simple timeline shows you exactly why. The highlighted path, that's the longest chain of dependent tasks. And what that means is any delay, even one single day to task A or B or D or F, will directly push back the project's final completion date. There is no slack, no buffer, no room for error on this path. For a project manager, understanding this isn't just important, it is everything.
So, we've explored the specific languages of cost, risk, and time. Let's pull it all together now. Why does getting these words right actually mean the difference between a project that succeeds and one that completely fails? Well, it all comes down to the power of precision. When everyone shares a common vocabulary, like the one in the ACE guide, ambiguity just disappears. It allows teams to take real control, to accurately measure performance, and to transform what could be a chaotic, high-stakes gamble into a predictable and ultimately a successful endeavor.
Look, this isn't just about using some fancy industry jargon. This shared language is the fundamental operating system that allows thousands of people across dozens of different fields to collaborate on building the incredible infrastructure that shapes all of our futures.
And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about. Look at your own work, your own team, your own projects. Where could a clearer, more precise, and more shared language be the one thing that prevents your biggest risks? Something to think about.